So I am here today with Andrea Burkhart again. I guess this is the first show that we have done together since the verdict. It already seems like it's been like 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Um, but I guess what I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to, it has been some time, but I did want to get your reaction to the verdict. If there's anything that you want to say that you haven't. I wanted to talk a bit about the media overreaction, the media hyperventilation over this verdict and this trial. And then we'll also look ahead just a bit to the Marilyn Manson defamation case and that whole situation that's on the horizon now. So anyway, Andrea, I know that we've both done videos and we've been online talking about the verdict, but is there anything kind of overall that you want to say, or anything after several days have gone by now that that comes to mind?
Well, just the vindication really that it is, especially in the wake of the UK judgment, when so many people had watched that process, thought kind of like in this case that the conclusion really should have been foregone, and then to be gaslit as we were by that UK judge. I think to see a jury look at essentially, by and large, the same evidence, look at the same stuff that we case watchers have been seeing for so many years, and to see that perspective is in fact sane and rational, you kind of wonder in this day and age that we live in, how good are we really at accepting a common set of facts, accepting a common truth? And this was really a vindication for that process. We are not broken as a society.
Yeah, and that's something, right? It might be kind of a low bar, but look, it's definitely, I know there were a number of us who were, even though we felt like Johnny Depp and his side had done overall a great job in this trial, and that he deserved that verdict. I know that some of us were still sweating it because you never know. I thought he was going to win the UK thing, and it didn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You never know. And especially with a jury, it can often be a little bit more unpredictable than with a judge. I think we saw a little bit of that with the win that Amber got on the one count on her counterclaim. Not that looking at that, I would say it's unjustified. I mean, I can certainly see how the jury would reach that conclusion, but it's just not necessarily what I think people might have predicted. So there's just always room for surprise with the jury.
Well, so I wanted to ask you, did the small win that Amber's side got, which, by the way, just to remind people, that had to do with something Adam Waldman said. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. It was. And so there were 3 statements, right? Twice when Adam Waldman called it an abuse hoax, that was not held to be defamatory by the jury. But when he made specific comments about they called the police, and then when that didn't work, she and her friends made a call to the attorney and the publicist, spilled a little wine, roughed the place up, and called again. That recounting of events appears to be what the jury determined was not true, and therefore was specifically defamatory. So I do think that is fairly significant, because it means that overall they recognized, yeah, this was a hoax, this was fake, this was something that she fabricated. But just Adam Waldman got the specific details wrong when he made that comment to the Daily Mail.
And is that right? Was Adam wrong about those statements? Was he factually incorrect? Was that defamatory?
Well, I mean, the jury said yes, and some of that evidence also, didn't come out in this trial. For example, we know that there was a second 911 call that was not made by IO. We've heard the recordings, not entirely clear who it was, but it sure sounds like Rocky. But that didn't get into evidence, so that's something the jury didn't hear. Jody Gottlieb, the publicist, of course, did not sit for her deposition in California, so she was not present as a witness. Asked about, did Amber Heard call you this night when this allegedly happened? So that was not in evidence. Amber had denied it, and they really had no ability to be able to controvert that. So, and then lastly, of course, just Adam had made these statements, as I recall, during the UK trial or shortly before the UK trial. And so it was before they had recovered the body cam video from the second set of officers when they realized, the body cam doesn't actually show any of this stuff that time either. So I think he had probably suspicions about how they had tried to conduct the hoax, but didn't really have firm corroboration at that point. And then once the body cam came out, it did suggest, well, that's not exactly what they did. It was more that they went to, set it up to take their pictures and stuff like that. But my personal view is that they never wanted the police involved, other than to just have that deniability factor of, well, the police came and it was really bad, but they are lying when they say they didn't see what I'm reporting, because here I took all of these pictures. So yes, Adam Waldman, I think, was technically wrong. And as the evidence played out, it didn't substantiate the way he had described that event unfolding. But again, having said that, does that constitute actual malice? Is it really defamatory when we're accepting that overall she did perpetrate an abuse hoax with a vanishing bruise? Right. Anyway, I think these are a little bit more questionable.
Yeah, and I don't know what credence we can give the video that I'm sure our viewers have seen of the supposedly a juror in the case discussing anonymously why they came to that verdict. But if that video is legit, basically what that juror was saying is that they had to concede something to make a deal. There were some people who wanted to hold Depp's team accountable for something, and that was really almost like a kind of a bone they were throwing to the other side. And I know that that there are concessions that have to be made in order to get a verdict. And I would much rather have had this happen than have had a hung jury.
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing too was Johnny getting the verdict on all three statements, because that is another area where there was potential room to compromise. But the three statements, I think, is important for two reasons. One, it completely eliminates any possibility of anti-SLAPP recovery for Amber Heard, because every single one of those statements she made with actual malice. And so none of them is a basis for her to request her attorney fees and costs. But then also, it's just very important that he get the moral victory of not just being not a rapist, but also not a wife beater. And so the fact that all three of those accounts were definitively rejected by the jury was a very significant win for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no way to spin it. I mean, I know Amber, some on Amber's side could try, but there's really no way to spin this as anything other than a victory for Depp. One of the things I want to talk about, I've been really just had it up to here, just sick of the media in this, especially this past week. I guess I just continue to be naive about these things. It doesn't matter how many times the mainstream media let me down. I still seem to be consistently surprised at their behavior. And I should have known better, but I didn't expect the backlash that Depp supporters have gotten this week. And so I just, it seems like for the past 3 or 4 days, it's been a barrage of articles from the mainstream media about how this trial was misogynistic and the interest in it was misogynistic. And this is going to send a terrible message to real survivors and women, and they're not going to be believed, and they're going to be dragged into court now. And so do you have any thoughts about that narrative that seems to have taken hold?
Well, I for one, am not surprised at all. I think I called it before we even went to trial when I said, when Johnny Depp gets his verdict, you're going to see what Scott Adams describes as a cognitive dissonance cluster bomb. That there's just no way for the media to reconcile this outcome with their preconceived notions about this case. And we already know that the media has not looked at this case with a particularly critical eye for the evidence and for the facts, the way that so many of us have done, for years now. So I'm not surprised, and unfortunately, I wish I could say this is something, you know, new as well, but it's not. This is such an old practice. If you go back and look at the behavior of the press over the course of after Michael Jackson got acquitted on 14, you know, counts that the state had brought against him, you're going to see almost exactly the same pattern that you're seeing in this case. The media had built up such a narrative of their outcome that they anticipated and preferred. And then when that did not materialize, because they were not being particularly attuned to the facts of that case and the significant problems with the evidence in that case, then what you saw were massive smears and massive explanations for, you know, why everything was wrong, why the system was wrong, why the jury was wrong. And it just really underscores the importance that we had the live stream, that we had the ability to watch this trial for ourselves. It's been so ironic to me seeing one of the outcomes of this process in the media being the criticizing of having cameras in the courtroom. It just really, I think, goes to show that how far we've come from the days when the media is supposedly there to be our source of the facts and the information, to today where it's just about controlling the narrative. The fact that we're able to independently go and look at the facts and make our own judgments is now an existential threat to the media. So, you know, it's been in a tailspin, I think, for quite some time. This is one of the bigger issues that this case was, I think, kind of always inevitably going to touch on: the problems with the media reporting, the slants, the narratives, the politicization. And so we're just seeing that play out now.
Yeah, and it is really insulting to be told by people who have not watched this case nearly as closely or followed it for as long as we have. And of course, I know there are people who've been watching it, following it longer than we have, but it's very insulting to be told by the media, who are definitely late to this party, that that not only is our perspective, those of us who've been following this for a long time and know the evidence really well, not only is our perspective off and wrong and crazy, but it's misogynist. And the only way, apparently, that we could have come to the conclusion that we did, and that society could have come to the conclusion that it did about Johnny Depp's innocence, apparently, is misogyny. And
which
and
is such a misogynistic take.
Do explain.
Well, just because there's a number, we're obviously two women sitting here. There have been a number of high profile women, and so many women who testified for Johnny with their own facts. And
right.
So this take that, you know, we couldn't possibly have reached a reasoned decision about what we think is fair and just in this case. It's become a joke that, you know, the response on social media, oh, you just want Johnny Depp to, he's never gonna fuck you. You know, I mean, is there possibly a more anti-woman, anti-equality perspective than to think that the millions of people, of women who support Johnny Depp, are just doing it because they want to fuck him? I mean, how Neanderthal is that?
Right. That's exactly right. We want to fuck him, and we're, you know, we're internalized misogynists. That's the one that I get a lot. Yeah, it's really insane. And the fact that they're just really doubling down on this, the media are, a number in the media. And you know, I've seen some really interesting contortions online among the blue check marks on Twitter, trying to find different ways of looking at this situation so that Amber Heard comes out somehow innocent in this. And what we've talked about again and again on this show is that even if you discount a lot of the evidence in favor of Johnny Depp, you still have those recordings. And those recordings, again, I'll be saying this, I guess, until I die, But I don't see how someone with a brain could listen to those recordings where Amber Heard is saying, you quote, always run away from every single fight. And where she's admitting to hitting Depp and to starting fights, and she's berating him for constantly running away. There's just no way to listen to that and to think that Depp was the one who was, chasing this woman around the house trying to beat her up. It's very clear who the abuser was in this. And so to me, it's amazing that we even have these tapes, and it's still not enough for the media. And I'm sure that you saw this, but there was an article by the mainstream media. Was it the Washington Post, where they talked about Jason Momoa testifying in Amber Heard's side? Was that the Washington Post article?
It was the LA Times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so LA Times,
and criticizing the content creators for getting all of their information about the trial from TikTok.
I love it. I love the juicy irony of that. Exactly. And it turns out that they got information from a fake video with Jason Momoa testifying. I mean, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the misinformation and how often the media, they don't know what's going on, and they'll criticize us for the behavior of the things that they're actually doing. It's definitely a case of projection here, projecting onto other people what they themselves are doing, when the truth is that the media are the ones who the mainstream media have not been following this case well enough to apparently discern what is a fake video and what's not. And then I saw also that there was that article by Taylor Lorenz, that Washington Post article, where they claimed that the writer claimed that she had tried to contact, what was it, that umbrella guy and Legal Bites, and it turns out that she had not, and the Washington Post had to issue a correction. So
I think they've issued like 4 corrections now, and they still don't have it right. They're still refusing to acknowledge that they lied in their original reporting when they said they had tried to reach out before running the article. And Alita has been very firm that that did not happen. They did not reach out to her until she called them out for it on Twitter. So it's just a complete refusal to take accountability for their own role in manufacturing the messaging that has now just been shown to be so completely hollow. One of the takes that I just can't, it blows me away, and I think says everything about how detached from reality some of these perspectives are, is the argument that just because Amber Heard is a domestic abuser doesn't mean she can't be a representative of domestic violence. This massive ends justify the means type of reasoning that I don't think makes sense to any rational person. Like, how would you have the fox representing the hen house? It's just not what I think normal people would accept as appropriate in any type of situation, but just so unwilling to back away from this defense of her, this promoting of her, this narrative that has been created of frankly, the women must always support other women. Was it Gloria Steinem, I think, who said there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women? I can't remember if it was her or if it was somebody else from that era.
Was it her? Or was it Ginsburg? Oh, well, I'll put it up in the comments. But
yeah, I can't remember who exactly said that.
Oh no, Madeleine Albright. I know that it was
Albright.
Madeleine.
Yeah, it could have been Albright. Yeah. But that is that's the mentality that we're facing, that it's not about the principles, it's not about the facts, it's not about the evidence, it is just about gender wars, and that's what they're trying to accomplish. So the fact that this has so severely undermined that is exactly why they're being so insanely defensive about it.
Yeah, and the freak out kind of reminds me of what happens, and I'm not trying to get political with this, but as an example, the 2016 election, where so many in the media were just absolutely shocked that Trump could have gotten enough votes in the swing states to have won that. There was such a disconnect between the way a lot of people, were feeling, a lot of normal people were feeling about Hillary Clinton, for instance, that the media just seemed totally ill prepared for the fact that she could lose that she could lose that election. And to me, the feeling on this, even though it's a very different situation and so forth, but the feeling on this is kind of similar, that the media didn't see something coming. They were caught off guard. They had their chosen preferred narrative. And when things did not go their way, instead of taking a look in the mirror and saying, well, maybe we got this wrong, or maybe we didn't see this coming, or maybe there are things going on in our society that we don't fully understand, or perspectives that we need to, they should have, how about doing, Washington Post or LA Times, how about doing a legitimate article on Depp supporters, where instead of going after them and trying to make us look like a bunch of, crazy fangirl misogynists, you actually dig into what was really going on here. And what you might find is that actually we have very good reasons for supporting Depp throughout this. But just this knee-jerk reaction that, of course, if we came to a different conclusion, or if the jury came to a different conclusion than the media, than the politically correct one, then it has to be wrong. And tell me what you think about this. I have seen a number of people in the media arguing that Amber Heard's op-ed was not defamatory and was simply just an expression of free speech, because she said in the op-ed that she became a figure representing domestic abuse. And so it's irrelevant, they say, whether Johnny Depp actually abused her or not, because all she was claiming is that she was made a representative, not that she actually was accusing him of abuse. Does that hold any weight legally? Is that a legitimate argument?
Well, it's a very legalistic argument. And obviously the jury did not see it that way. That is essentially what Ben Rottenborn pitched in his closing, that these statements are technically true, and therefore you shouldn't penalize Amber Heard, notwithstanding the fact that they have this incidental effect of severely defaming Johnny Depp. So, I mean, of course that argument can be made, but the jury didn't buy that. The jury didn't accept that she, in good faith, had the moral standing that she tried to bring to that op-ed to support the call for action that she was making. She wasn't making a call for action for domestic abusers, or for help for domestic abusers, or, help us intervene with domestic abusers. She was speaking out as a victim. And so that was clearly not accepted. And it's just an example of not being willing to accept the fact that other people have legitimate reasons for a different perspective. This is just, I mean, you pointed out, I don't want to get super political either, but I do think it's kind of ironic seeing the Depp supporters getting the Trump supporter treatment in the media now. I have a wide range of political orientations and affiliations among my social media followers. You really can't pinpoint, right wing, left wing, anything like that. I mean, it's it's a very diverse group of people who have come together around this particular case. But obviously now you're seeing the media trying to pitch it as though it's like a right-wing thing, because that's a tool that they have to be able to demonize and diminish the perspective that they did not understand and didn't see coming. They didn't realize that they were the minority. And it really is just so much of the same phenomenon that we saw coming out of the 2016 election. I think part of the problem with the media, and I don't know if it's, I think that the rise of the online era has a lot to do with it, because our feeds have become so much more cultivated. They're much narrower. I was just talking to my friend Heidi last night, the girl who did my fish. And we were talking about how there's a massive amount of people today who don't have the Blockbuster experience. We were talking about like Netflix and those types of feeds, and how, for those of us who grew up in the era of going to the local video shop, and having this massive library of content to be able to find, it was such a different experience than, yes, Netflix has a high volume of content available, but so much of it is crap. We don't have anything like the types of archives that we used to have in the analog era. And so there's just less and less exposure all the time to broader views, to things that are outside of our own frame of reference. So the media, I think, has participated in this and is just at a point where they aren't capable of seeing a perspective outside of their own. And so it becomes this phenomenon where if somebody thinks differently from me, that person must obviously be an idiot or must obviously be evil. There's simply no ability to comprehend that there are entirely different worldviews, entirely different cultural perspectives, all kinds of ways that people look at things. For the media, their perspective is elect. They're the ones that are right and holy, and we will be beaten into submission until we accept that.
Well, exactly right. And a couple of things I wanted to point out. One, that the House and Habit writer, Jessica Krause, I hope I'm saying the right, but she's done some great coverage of the Johnny Depp thing, and her Instagram account, almost 1 million followers, was disabled at one point during all of this. Anyway, someone wrote an article, someone in the mainstream media. It was either an article or it was something that they posted. But anyway, someone in the mainstream media was attacking Jessica Reed Krause, House Inhibited, for her coverage of the Depp trial and of some other things. And this person said, basically that people like Jessica should not be covering these stories because you need a journalism degree to cover these stories effectively. There are all of these things, all of these principles, apparently, Andrea, that they learn in journalism school to help safeguard them from coming to the kinds of asinine conclusions that you and I have come to, apparently, during the trial. Oh man. So just the idea, that and so I think that's what you're saying, that they really do feel like in the mainstream media that they've earned this right to be gatekeepers. And not only are they not gatekeepers anymore, but they're really left out in the cold. They're not being listened to. They're being shrugged off or at worst ridiculed by a lot of people. And I think too, that something that's going on here as well is that I think it's been a delayed reaction, but I think, okay, the one thing I think that's interesting is how there's been a kind of a delayed reaction. We didn't, the first few weeks of the trial, we did not by and large get these articles coming out in the mainstream media about the misogyny of this trial or about how disturbing it is, or it's bad for women and bad for Me Too and all that. It was a delayed reaction. And what I'm thinking is the media one thing they did not anticipate is that this case would be taken as representative for a much larger problem, which is people being falsely accused, often men being falsely accused of domestic violence and Me Too type crimes they didn't commit. And I think that the media have started to see that this case is having and going to have a real impact on how people, on the credulity with which people approach these types of claims. And it is demonstrating to a lot of people that not only can you not believe all women, but that some women can be capable of orchestrating fairly complex, conspiracies and hoaxes and lies. And so I think that one thing that's happening is the media is having this rude awakening. Oh my God, this case is a kind of a precedent. This does have a sort of cultural cachet, and they don't like it. They don't like the implications of it. And they sure don't like they're not in control of the narrative.